in any crisis at all, such that threatens life, such as this in this pandemic, which is a very, very terrible thing, you have to become impartial as you possibly can to help understand not only your own position in this, but the position of other people. Condemning people, which seems to be on all sides, can't actually improve the argument. It just hardens the shells of people on one side or the other. How people deal with this particular crisis, the pandemic, will eventually become personal. It has to be. No matter, and we all have to consider the feelings of the administrators and the politicians and everyone else involved, and ask ourselves, why are they acting? Why are they being the way they are? And basically, the answer can be round about the same. They're all product of their development, their cultural development, that applies to everyone. Everyone's a product of their own cultural development. And that in itself will affect how people feel, act, or think about any particular thing that affects them negatively or positively. And it's hard to create a total collective response to something such as an illness, because the illness will always affect people individually. We don't have a collective response to someone breaking a leg. We feel sorry for them, or someone with cancer. We feel sorry. These things are terrible afflictions upon people. But it's not someone gets cancer and we haven't. Then our responses to it, well, how do I avoid getting cancer? Someone breaks a leg. The logical response is, how do I avoid breaking my leg? Especially as you get older and infirm and you struggle through the later years of your life, and you're saying, well, how do I learn not to fall over by keeping fit and strong? Is the simple answer to that. We can't suddenly change people's status of people's health, no matter what. That is determined by also, again, cultural factors that the people involved have to come to terms with. There is a cultural factor of people's health status. Is purely, in the end, an individual matter, other than they may find sympathy and empathy amongst people who have a similar condition. And that's a beautiful thing. People really need to feel part of something, or need to feel needed and cared for by others. That's a very normal human affection. That's what it is. That's basically is what human is, other than being able to ask a question about how do I deal with this crisis, this particular thing called a pandemic? How do I avoid, of all things, getting the virus? If I can, hide and run away from it. This is why all of the argument about the lockdown is one of those arguments where, is there a right answer to that? Is there a right, anyway, there's a right answer that says the lockdowns are right? Of course there is. Of course it is, because they allow people to get over the virus if they've had it, and then become immune to it. Whatever the case, whether being vaccinated and whatever, or not vaccinated, getting over an attack of the virus is something that has to be dealt with in some sort of lockdown. Whether it's self-isolation or the authorities enforce it, which is happening. So that's something we have to consider, that the people, the authorities themselves, must be as divided depending on their philosophy and their learning and understanding, especially the philosophy on life. Different people have got a different philosophy on life. Different cultures have different philosophy on life. That's the very nature of multiculturalism. So these things have to be considered carefully by people, so they help society, help individuals deal with this terrible crisis we're going through, the world's going through, for whatever reason. It seems to me, if we all get into the blame game forever, I don't see how that helps. I don't see how that helps anyone move forward in any part of this. Because if we start blaming, we're regressing the development of the debates and the arguments. If, on the other hand, we try to understand the position of others, then we start to develop an empathy with them, no matter what side they're on. Because in the end, this disease can in fact affect everybody, no matter who they are, no matter who it is. Unless there's some magic elixir among some, that means they are protected. And that's only my imagination saying that. It's not saying it's true. It's just one always wishes for a magic elixir to resolve something so traumatic as this particular pandemic and the illnesses it may cause. Because no matter what, people are made to suffer seriously illness from this, and that's a very sad thing. Anyone who doesn't feel sadness or for people or empathy for people who are coming down with this, because it can affect all of us, and that is the general empathy created amongst the people. But then the obtuse or the, if you like, abstract of that is that each person or different people may have different philosophies in regards to how they deal with this crisis. This how to deal with death, how we deal with living, is all very much down to your family background, your cultural background, and all the other things that have affected you through your life and through your nurturing and over the generations before this. So that allows you then to understand all sides of this, no matter who it is in this thing. No matter who it is, it's better to try to understand everyone rather than just condemn them, and better to understand everyone's point of view in this rather than just attack and condemn. Because there are many problems in this world, many very serious problems, especially with the environment, and that's one concerns me in particular the most. The environment, the caring for the planet. And that is something that I cannot ignore. That the planet does need a cooperative effort from humanity to deal with the problems caused by overconsumption in how it affects the planet, especially all the plastics in the oceans. I find that so sad that seems to be an ignored subject, when that is himself is creating, if you like, a sickness into the oceans that may do a lot of damage to a lot of living things. And that may affect the whole cycle of life, the biocycle itself. And that's something else. That's all of these things are part of a syndrome some of us have that says we must care for the planet. And if we care for ourselves, our individual selves, our health, our well-being, etc., then we're probably thinking more about how can we care also for the planet. And I think that's an important message in all of this, is caring for ourselves. How does that relate to caring for the planet?